Jason, if you could put up that cover slide, just so folks know as people are coming in. Thank you. All right. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight. I'm Katie Rice. I'm the County Supervisor for District 2, which is most of the Ross Valley, including Larkspur, which is the location of the 1251 South Eliseo project. And this meeting tonight is to provide the community and those interested parties and residents and neighbors an update on the project. Before we get going, Jason, if you could please provide the instructions on how for translation and closed captioning.
Instructions for accessing interpretation through Zoom. 1. Click Interpretation. 2. Choose a language. 3. Click Mute Original Audio.
Instrucciones para acceder a la interpretación en español a través de Zoom. Haga clic en la palabra Interpretación. Escoja su idioma. Haga clic en la palabra Mute Original Audio.
Closed Captioning. This presentation includes closed captioning. To enable captions, click the Show Captions button at the bottom of the Zoom window. If you do not see the Show Captions button, it will be available under More. Select Captions, then Show Captions.
All right. Thank you very much, Jason. So again, welcome to everybody who's joining us tonight. So I think we'll begin just with a little bit of introduction. So my office and county staff have been working over the past year with a community advisory group and other partners to understand and address community concerns with a particular focus on concerns of the school community. So tonight we're here to provide you an update, to hear from you and to answer questions. You will hear from Christy Chandler, who is a member of our community advisory group and a parent at Kentfield School District. You'll also hear from Gary Najaris, who's the county's Whole Person Care Homelessness Division Director. You'll hear from Chris Calendrillo, who is the Chief Operating Officer for Episcopal Community Services, and they are the operator of the project. And you'll also hear from Deputy Michael Thompson from the Marin County Sheriff's Office, speaking for the law enforcement agencies. There will be other members of staff from ECFs and the county standing by, and from Parks, Marin County Parks, to answer questions as they come up. Before we get going with the presentations, I wanted to introduce David Rydell. Jason, if you could let in David Rydell, and he is the president of the Kentfield School Board, and also Jeff Lay, who is president of the Kent Woodlands Property Owners Association, and they're here to say a few words. These organizations, Kentfield School District and KWPOA, collaborated with the county and ECS to bring this community update tonight. They also have representatives serving on the community advisory group. So Dave, David, are you around?
I am. I'm right here.
All right, it's all yours. Good evening.
Okay. Thank you, Katie. My name is David Riedel. I'm the president of the Kentfield School District Board of Trustees, and also a member of the Community Advisory Group for Home Key facility that's opening on South Eliseo. This is a very important session for all of us to learn more about this supportive housing facility before it opens in the coming months. There's been some confusion about certain aspects of the project, and aspects of the project have evolved since we last had an opportunity like this for the public to get their questions answered. If you have questions about drug use at the facility, or the rules for guests, or public safety presence, I encourage you to ask those questions and get those questions answered tonight. This is your chance to get those answers before the facility opens. I really appreciate the hard work that's gone into this. This is a facility that is opening, and it's going to help address a longstanding issue in California. And I hope that the community can come together with good answers to questions and knowledge from tonight to make this as successful as possible. Thank you.
Great. I can speak next. Hi, everybody. This is Jeff Lay with the KWPOA. This is I timed this is less than 2 minutes, so it's not going to go too long. I really love that everybody's getting together with this update. I think transparency and communication is critical here. So my name is Jeff Lay. I'm the president of the Kent Woodlands Property Owners Association. Our entrance to our neighborhood is about a 1 mile walk from the Home Key site. Our board represents about 500 homes, thousands of residents, and hundreds of Kentfield School District households. I'm also a KSD parent myself. I've got a second grader at Basage, a fourth grader at Basage, and a sixth grader at Kent Middle School. For those of you attending their first Zoom tonight regarding this project, Home Key is housing for the homeless that will be opening around the same time as the new school year begins this coming August, and it's located within a very short walk from Creekside Park, Basage, and Kent that will house 43 to 50 individuals and their guests without any mandatory requirements for sobriety or mandatory participation in mental health programs. I am very interested and supportive of finding solutions to the homeless crisis. It's a very, very complex issue, as we all know. And I commend Katie Rice specifically, and the state and the county and all of you for trying to work towards a solution. I cannot imagine being homeless myself, and I empathize deeply. There are many folks in our community who spoke out in support of Project Home Key during the decision-making process, and I completely get where they're coming from. First and foremost, if it's helpful to set the tone, tonight is not about discussing whether anyone is for or against the project. This is opening. This is about making sure that the county and others responsible are doing everything possible to layer in the appropriate safety nets to protect our kids. So thank you in advance for fielding questions and adjusting your plans based on our feedback. So there's a similar Home Key project to this one in Milpitas. According to the article in the Milpitas Beat, while their pre-Home Key building was still a hotel, local law enforcement received about 30 calls on average in a 6-month period. Fast forward to just past the half-year mark since their Home Key opened, and that number had gone up to about 269. So likely on track annually for more than 400 to 500 calls. According to this article, events that officers find themselves responding to include neglect, abuse, DUI, trespass, and vandalism. They've also responded to calls about suspicious activity and have conducted welfare checks, and a woman was murdered by her partner at the site. Some of my personal concerns for our Greenbury Home Key site are centered around the fact that this project is an addition of over 40 to 50 new residents in this neighborhood with the likely history of mental health and addiction problems that chronically homeless people have. This in itself is a major change to this neighborhood. There does not appear to be a promise of comprehensive data collection or a reporting plan in place. There's no contractual ramifications for the operator, ECS, if the public safety impacts prove to be considerable. And I understand the county is also considering removing the crossing guard at the intersection of Bon Air and South Eliseo. This person could be an additional set of eyes in the area when students are traveling to and from school. Many more nuances that I'm aware of, many more that I'm not. One example is the commitment of 90 days worth of enhanced law enforcement presence. The question is, why only 90 days? When does the 90 days start? Does it start from when it's fully occupied, or does it start from when the first resident moves in? Things like that. So like I mentioned earlier, I commend Katie Rice and the state and the county for trying to work towards a solution. This is really complex. This is Marin's first Home Key site. So let's all make sure we come together to make it a success in a proactive manner.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you, David. And I think we'll get some answers to those questions, Jeff, that you raised as part of the presentation and take them up afterwards. And also, I wish you'd been part of that community advisory group, because some of your information isn't exactly correct. And one of the most important things I think to talk about is that the Milpitas project is one of, I don't know how many across the Bay Area. And the stories that you read, yes, they're out there in the news. But we do have two other Home Key projects actually in Marin County, one in Corte Madera. But anyway, we'll get into the details. Totally appreciate your concerns and the community's concerns. And that's why we're here today. And that's also why we had the community working group working over the last year to really ensure a successful project for everybody involved. So the agenda going forward is going to be, so Christy, I'm forgetting your last name.
Chandler.
Chandler.
Yeah.
Christy Chandler from our community working group, a community advisory group, is going to provide some remarks from the CAG. We're going to have a project update from the county, and then brief presentations by both Episcopal Community Services, we call them ECS, and then also from the sheriff. And then we'll have a look forward per oversight and accountability and community engagement. And then we'll move on to Q&A, and we'll, I don't expect the presentations and the talking part to take more than half an hour. So we'll have plenty of time for Q&A. And if we run out of time at 8 o'clock, there'll be a venue for folks providing, putting in questions, and we'll get back to you. So I think we've got plenty of time. And with that, let's get going. And Christy, thank you so much for being here tonight and for participating on the CAG.
Oh, thank you. Thank you to be here. I'm glad to be here. Thank you. So the community advisory group, we call it the CAG, was put together by the county and ECS at Supervisor Rice's request to gather input from a broad group of community stakeholders to work towards ensuring the successful launch and a community partnership with 1251 South Eliseo residents and the community. The CAG consists of at-large community members like myself, representatives from the Kentfield School District, the Marin County Sheriff's Office, the Central Marin Police Authority, the City of Larkspur, and Marin County Parks. I personally joined to bring the perspective of a resident of Larkspur. I live about a mile from the building, and I also have young kids in the Kentfield School District. There were also people on the CAG who live right next door to the building. They're business owners, healthcare providers, and other interested residents and stakeholders. So we've been meeting consistently since January of 2022, actually no less than monthly, and sometimes with subcommittees, we met weekly. And at the meetings, there was always an opportunity to get an update on the project and discuss its policy objectives and the plan to meet those objectives. And members of the CAG were advised on, members of the CAG advised the general group on the challenges that they foresaw from the perspective of the local community. So the CAG was basically a place for us all to get educated, to discuss. There was debate and problem solving. And it was not without levels of frustration, as it did bring together a lot of different views. And as Jeff said, it's a complicated issue that brings emotion with it too. And there was space for that on the CAG to bring those views. Members of the CAGs also were provided an opportunity to go see. We were taken on a tour of the building, I think just before construction started. And we also were provided an opportunity to go see ECS facilities. I went and saw a facility with Supervisor Rice and another CAG, or two members in San Francisco, to see how ECS was running a facility currently. And we got to talk to residents there and also talk to people that work there when we were there. So in the early days of the CAG, we worked with ECS and the county to advocate on the resident leases that clearly outline community rules and expectations. We talked about staffing levels, including a sufficient clinical team, property management, and a community safety services portion to monitor activity inside as well as immediately outside on the property. And one thing that became clear was how this building sits at the cross section of different county and city jurisdictions, which creates its own unique challenges that we were always sort of contemplating and learning about who had jurisdiction over what part. By the end of 2022, a safety subcommittee was formed that was really had the intention to really drill down into the community's safety concerns. And that led to a sort of a working group with the local public safety agencies, including Central Marin Police Authority, the Marin County Sheriff, the Parks, and Highway Patrol. And we learned a lot about how these agencies work together and coordinate and cooperate throughout the county, again, with all these different jurisdictions coming into play. So these conversations have now led to agencies increasing their levels of coordination and presence in the community as residents move in, and you're going to be hearing more about that in detail later. And in addition, there was discussion, there was a lot of interest too from the CAG and the broader community about opportunities to volunteer. And so ongoing in the summer of this year, the CAG is going to be convening another subgroup to take a leading role in coordinating opportunities to for this community to help welcome their new neighbors into Larkspur. So so the work is ongoing, and yeah, thank you for letting me be a part of it. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. All right, so now we're going to move on to Gary Najaris for an update from the county on the progress of the project. Gary, it's all yours.
Thank you, Supervisor. Next slide, please. So in my presentation this evening, I'm just going to be talking very briefly about kind of where we've been, where we're at now, and where we're going to finalize the launch of the project. So a little bit about where we've been. Prior to the release of Home Key, the county selected Episcopal Community Services from a competitive process as the housing developer and service provider. ECS came to us with a successful history of developing multiple properties and operating over 2,000 apartments for persons previously experiencing homelessness. Our Home Key was released back on September 9th, 2021. And just as a reminder for folks that may be unfamiliar, this is a state funding opportunity to convert underutilized properties to permanent housing for formerly homeless individuals, and it requires a very aggressive timeline. After several months of waiting, the 1251 South Eliseo project was awarded. So Marin was awarded over $12 million for acquisition and construction of the project and over $2 million in operating support. The county, through its leadership, contributed additional funding, over $11 million for construction and over $12 million for operations support over a 15-year period, which is required by Home Key. Back in May of last year, the Board of Supervisors approved several required documents for Home Key, and our team required a draft operating agreement, which included a preliminary work plan and budget from ECS, and included required elements for the project from the county, as well as how ECS planned to operate and staff the facility. So we've been in ongoing discussions since that time to refine that agreement. As you heard from Christy Chandler, there's been multiple community engagement sessions and the ongoing work of the community advisory group, which has been significant for this project. And finally, construction began in August 2022 and will be complete this year per the Home Key 12-month timeframe. Next slide. Just as a visual, I wanted to share some of the progress of the construction. In the upper left, you can see a rendering of what the completed facility will look like. On the upper right and lower right, you can see some before and after from the framing in the hallways and units, and now with the sheetrocking and ceiling materials going up. The center top photo is a rework of the interior courtyards that's going on. There are two of those in the interior of the building, which will allow residents a safe and contemplative place to relax. And then in the lower left and center, you can see some of the new windows and progress being made overall on the property. Next slide. So to summarize where we're going, on this chart, you'll see a timeline across the top, starting now in May and running through till the mid-fall. And on the left-hand side, you can see some key processes like construction and the client review and matching and some major milestones. For the period May through July, construction will be continuing. We have also initiated the coordinated entry process. And for those of you that are not familiar with coordinated entry, this is a process where residents are selected through a collaborative process between ECS, the county, and our homeless service provider partners to match each person to the unit most appropriate for their needs. This is an opportunity where providers with a long history with clients can talk about backgrounds, successes, what's worked and not worked, and position clients for optimal success at 1251 South Eliseo. And then finally, CAG meetings are continuing during the May through July period. In August, we have a number of key things. Construction will be completed in August. ECS will already have some referrals of clients in hand and be processing basic applications and setting up leases for that initial group of clients. And all of the staffing and services will be in place at that time and ready to go for opening. In September, resident move-in will begin. There will be a comprehensive wraparound services provided at the facility, which will begin at that time for clients as well. And ECS will work to create plans specific to client needs. And stakeholder engagement will continue after the facility opens. And then, as you can see, for October and November, residents continue to move in. And by November, we will be completing that 90-day window required by HomeKey for having the facility fully occupied. And next slide. I think that's good for me.
Great.
Back to you, Supervisor.
Thank you, Gary. All right, so Chris from Episcopal Community Services, it is all yours. Are you with us, Chris?
I am with you.
All right.
Joyce.
Handing off.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to start by thanking our partners on the CAG who have given so much time over the last year, and our county partners, and especially Supervisor Rice for her leadership. We're going to go through ECS's role. If we can start with the next slide. ECS has been providing services to folks experiencing homelessness for over 40 years. We actually had our 40-year gala celebration last Saturday, so it was very, very fun. ECS is a comprehensive homeless services provider with expertise in developing and operating supportive housing. So we build buildings and we operate them. We also have departments that provide behavioral health services, healthy aging, workforce development. So when we say comprehensive, we are really talking about the needs of the whole person. And we also partner in the community for the needs that folks have as well. ECS currently operates over 2,000 units of supportive housing in 20 buildings. ECS is partnering with Marin County Coordinated Entry. Gary just talked about that partnership from now until August to identify residents. There will be 43 residents, and there will be one live-in property management person, and I'll show that in a few minutes when we get to the staffing pattern. All of the units are fully renovated. This is a studs out renovation, so it will be top of the line and beautiful is our expectation, and a great place for people to live. We say leasing will begin in early September. I don't want people to be confused. Gary said leasing will start in August. Our leasing activities will start in August. People will start moving in early September. We say leasing as the same thing as moving in for us, and continue through November. Next slide, please. ECS's role in the HomeKey partnership will own and operate the building, including property management and supportive services. Supportive services includes one-on-one case management. Each case manager will have a caseload of 17 people, which is very good in our experience with other counties. Marin has brought that number way down for us, so we can really focus on the individual, and we appreciate that. We'll have on-site behavioral health care services. What behavioral health care means is a licensed clinician that will be on site every day to provide support for those that need it. We We'll provide referral to primary care, healthcare, employment training, and connection to public benefits and food supports to help people transition into living healthy, productive lives. Our case management services are voluntary. Folks that move into permanent housing, into supportive housing, have a lease. It's their apartment. We say that we have a little saying in our agency that services are optional, but our outreach and engagement activities are not. So we outreach to everyone all the time. We engage people at every opportunity and make sure that people are getting what they need, whether they meet with a case manager on a regular basis or not. We're very proactive. Next slide, please. When residents move into the building, they are immediately paired with a case manager and a dedicated staff member who helps each resident identify goals and track progress. So although this is not a program, this is their housing. This is not a temporary placement. This is their permanent housing. We do want people to recover and become and gain stability in their housing. And we help people identify goals and work on those goals throughout their stay with us. Property management. So we subcontract for property management. And our property managers provide janitorial services, the maintenance services, rent collection, 24-hour front desk staffing. So there will be somebody at the front desk awake and active 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and a live-in property management manager. Property management also addresses lease violations and evictions when necessary. So the property management will be provided by a property management company. The support services, the case management and the behavioral health will be provided by ECS, with other county providers coming in for additional support. Next slide. So the people that do all of that work, there's an associate director, and I apologize, she wasn't able to be here today. Her name is Kristen. She has been with ECS for over 10 years. She knows how to do permanent supportive housing. This has been her career. And she is the best of the best, and we're really happy that she's agreed to take on this building with us. The community around the building will have an opportunity to get to know Kristen. You'll get to know the staff. We are hoping to do an open house before the building opens, where people can meet these staff and have a contact. So Kristen is our primary sort of management person, and she'll be there 2 days a week. There's a support services manager that reports to Kristen, and the support services manager will be there full time, Monday through Friday. There are 2.5 case managers. At least one of them will be bilingual, and they'll be there Monday through Friday as well. The behavioral health specialist will be there Monday through Friday. So this is the licensed clinician. Property management, I just said, is 24-hour desk clerk and a live-in site manager. So if something happens in the middle of the night, the front desk person will be there, will be awake, will trigger the live-in manager if they need to come and address whatever situation it is. And then there's a community safety ambassador that we added in response to the community request. So ECS, not under our contract with the county, but through our own fundraising, has agreed to staff an ambassador. This person will be working the whole property. So they'll be outside in the parking lot. They'll be on the border of the property. If folks have concerns about kids walking to school, there'll be a person there, just making sure that everything is smooth on our end. If there are issues, if people are having an issue in the little parklet next door, We can work with that. Our county partners will talk once I'm done about what will happen in the larger parks and other areas around the neighborhood. But we did hear the community, and we'll have an ambassador that can respond within the area of the program, within the perimeter of the program, and be eyes and ears outside the building, since most of the staff is inside the building. And I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Great. So next up, we have Deputy Mike Thompson, and he is with the Sheriff's Department, the Marin County Sheriff's Department. Are you here, Mike?
Sure am.
All right. It's all yours, Mike. Thank you for being here.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you, Supervisor. So again, my name is Michael Thompson. I am a deputy with the Sheriff's Office, and I serve in the role of the Sheriff's Homelessness Liaison Deputy. And essentially what that means is I'm the point person at the Sheriff's Office for managing our department's response to the issues in the unhoused community in unincorporated Marin. And it's through that role that I've participated in the community advisory group since pretty early, since it was created, hearing the community's concerns and kind of working with my own internal staff to figure out how we're going to address those things. Next slide, please. So real quick, just so you guys are aware, the central part of Marin is probably the best situated when it comes to our mutual aid response to law enforcement issues. We not only have the Sheriff's Office, we have the Central Marin Police Authority, we have Parks and Open Space, we have the California Highway Patrol, and then we have some of our smaller agencies that we work with on a regular basis, such as the Ross Police Department, the College of Marin Police, and the Fairfax Police. And we work with these agencies to handle law enforcement calls throughout that Sir Francis Drake corridor on a regular basis, sometimes even a daily basis. So there probably is no, even though those agencies tend to be fairly small, if we did see an increase in calls for service as a result of the opening of the facility, there's probably no other place in Marin where the various agencies that exist work better than we do in that area. So we're very used to handling calls together. One example of that is the hospital, which does fall in an unincorporated Marin and is the Sheriff's Office jurisdiction. We handle a lot of calls there. We do it very swiftly and very peacefully most of the time. And I would bet that most residents in the area probably don't know how many calls the hospital actually generates, because we have a lot of experience handling those pretty quickly. Next slide, please. So the Sheriff's Office, specific to the Kentfield area, we do staff our Kentfield substation 24/7. We also have one deputy assigned to the Kent Woodlands area, although that's not a 24-hour assignment. It is a Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. assignment. We have two deputies specifically assigned to the Parks and Open Space District. And although they do cover the county-wide parks and open space preserves, there are additional resources that we can pull and assign to areas such as Hal Brown Park if we do see an increase in calls at that location. We have our one homeless liaison deputy, which is me, and we have one school resource officer, again, another person that we can pull and assign to our increased presence in the area after the opening. So next slide, please. So the sheriff has committed to 3 months at least of a proactive neighborhood patrols in the area as a result of the opening of the facility. Just to address that real quick, the why 90 days, it's not 90 days and then it's done. It's a 90-day and then we do an assessment. And that was really just done to try and keep it fresh on everybody's minds internally. If we told everybody we're going to commit to 5 years of neighborhood patrols specific to this facility, and we didn't see a noticeable increase in calls, well, it would, just like anything else, it would probably not be as on the minds of our deputies as we want it to be. So the 90 days was just, we thought, a good assessment point, and then we can adjust resources as we go. That 90 days will start as soon as residents start moving in. But of course, if we only have a few residents in the facility, we probably will not dedicate as many resources initially as we will when the full 43 residents are living in there. So the sheriff is committed to having the personnel there to address the concerns, but we're going to do it, as the moving goes. That proactive commitment that we're going to do is going to focus on the schools, the footpaths, and Hal Brown Park specifically. We're going to focus our neighborhood patrols at the schools on the pickup and drop off times. And in order to do this, we're going to partner with our other agencies in the area, such as the Highway Patrol, Central Marin Police Authority, and the Parks and Open Space District. So even if the sheriff's office can't necessarily have a deputy at each school every day of the week, the hope is that you'll see some member of law enforcement at these various schools to meet that obligation. So next slide, please. As we move forward after the opening, there will be, if issues do arise, we do have, existing partnerships with law enforcement and the county to address issues in the unhoused community. And of course, once the clients move in, they'll no longer be unhoused, but it would still be these existing meetings that we have. It's a good communication platform for us to discuss with the county, with ECS, what the issues are we're seeing and how we can go about addressing them so that they're resolved. And then moving past that, the sheriff is committed to our involvement, the sheriff's office involvement in quarterly stakeholder review, which I think the supervisor is going to talk more about, but we're going to bring to that review call data and crime data, and not just the numbers, but a real qualitative analysis of what that data means, because sometimes just the numbers can be a little bit don't tell us what we think they do. So, and then next slide, please. And then the last thing I'll mention is I'll talk about Hal Brown Park briefly. So Hal Brown Park is obviously a community concern. It's an attraction. I know there's concern that it might be an attractive nuisance to some of the residents that might be living at the facility. Hal Brown Park is a day use park only. It includes the Corte Madera Creek Path. Parks and Open Space manages and owns the park. They have rangers and park staff there daily. Their plan is to adjust the hours of their rangers and park staff to coincide with the school let in and let out times. And in addition to that, they already have private security there at night, as it is a day use only park. Their security does 3 checks per night. And again, that's more eyes at the park to report to law enforcement if there are issues that arise there at the park, that we can be there and resolve those issues quickly. So that's all I've got. But of course, I'm happy to answer any questions when we get to that portion of the presentation and listen to any ideas you guys have about ways we can increase and address the concerns. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. That's great. I really appreciate you being here tonight and all your help this last year. So Gary, I'm going to hand it back over to you to talk a little bit about how the county is going to handle its relationship with ECS and sort of oversight of the project in terms of how it's operating going forward. So Gary?
Next slide, please. Thank you, Supervisor. So I wanted to just start off by saying, our role at the county from the beginning has been to set up, monitor and ensure a successful project. And there are a number of ways that we do that. One of the next that you'll all see is, the final operating agreement, which includes that final work plan and budget for how the facility is going to operate, what the expectations are, outcome measurements, et cetera, as well as the budget to include staffing, and all of that is scheduled for approval by the Board of Supervisors in late June. And once the contract year starts in July, there will also be annual contract renewals to the board every year, which will include progress on the past year, successes, challenges, how they've been addressed, et cetera, at the facility. My team in our division will provide regular monthly and quarterly, both program and budget oversight over that contract to ensure compliance. So in other words, we're going to be looking at everything from are funds being spent in the appropriate way? Is staffing at the levels agreed upon in the budget? If for any reason there are turnovers in staffing, what's the immediate hiring plan for refilling positions immediately so that there's not a gap in services? And also, not only overseeing the work plan elements in terms of how the project is being implemented, but also all of the county's everything from our racial equity compliance efforts to contract compliance to fair housing and other compliance. We'll be overseeing quite a large number of things and discussing that on a monthly and quarterly basis formally with ECS. As a backstop measure, the county can cancel the contract with ECS and reserves the right to buy back the site for $1 for serious non-performance of the contract. Back to you, Supervisor.
All right, thank you, Gary. All right, so next slide, please. So, as we get closer to move-in time, one of the things that CAG discussed was, how does the outer community continue to stay apprised and have an understanding of how the project is going, and also continue to have a medium to provide input. And so the recommendation was made to form a quarterly stakeholder group that would meet, comprised of a lot of the same stakeholder reps that were part of the CAG. So it would be representatives from the Kentfield School District, from KWPOA, from the City of Larkspur, from ECS and the county, from law enforcement, which has included the sheriff and parks and Central Marin Police Authority, and to basically meet quarterly. And in fact, we're gonna start off before the project opens and before residents even move in, to sort of through that sort of qualitative and quantitative data-driven analysis, the kind of data that law enforcement will be able to have, which will show if there's upticks in calls. We'll be able to have that data, and in sitting down and working together as a group, we'll be able to have that qualitative analysis provided by law enforcement. It is an opportunity for more dialogue and back and forth with ECS, and really this quarterly stakeholder meeting and group is really built to ensure we continue to have good communication and information going out to community stakeholders. And that, of course, that information can be disseminated further as, frankly, as you have representatives from Kentfield School District or KWPA, they can report out. We'll continue to update a website with information that's coming in. We want to be really transparent about what's going on at 1251 South Eliseo, and we want to make sure that there is, no vacuum of information, and that stakeholders and the community at large has a feeling of being able to really stay in touch and understand what's going on and continue to provide some input. So I think that was a great recommendation of the CAG, and I think it will be really helpful going forward. So next slide, please. So what we're going to do now is we are going to go to questions. If folks have a question, if you are on the call right now and you'd like to speak, if you could raise your hand. I'm sure there's got to be some questions out there. We did, and while folks are raising their hands, we did have a couple people reach out who were unable to attend tonight. And they actually had a couple questions that I think are probably fairly, might be ones that might get asked by folks who are here tonight. So I'm just going to start with maybe one of those as people raise their hands, and then we'll move on to you attendees. Anybody who's on the call who'd like to ask a question or make a comment, that's fine. That's what this time is for. So I am thinking, given that the grocery store in Larkspur is closing, this is a question coming from a resident who wrote in, where and how are the residents of 1251 South Eliseo going to get their, food and groceries? How are their basic needs met? And I'm thinking that's a question for ECS. Chris, are you there, or who from ECS would like to answer that?
I'm here. The question was regarding food and basic needs.
Yeah, and the grocery store in nearby Larkspur is closing. There are other grocery stores, but if you just could speak to how, how are folks going to make sure their basic sort of day-to-day living needs are met?
Yeah. So the program itself, our services will have a relationship with the food bank. We have a deep relationship with them that's ongoing. So we'll have regular food bank deliveries where people will get baskets of food each week. There's also additional food resources in Marin that we've been made aware of that we will connect with. That'll be a new relationship. And helping people understand the bus system. I know that Marin has a complicated bus system and it can take a while to get around, but our folks will need to understand that should people have financial needs for transportation, we can also provide bus passes and other supports so that folks can get out in the community as they need to.
Okay, so on that transportation front, I can, so Marin Transit does have a couple routes that serve that area, actually go down South Eliseo or on air, but it's not, highly frequent service like in the city. But Marin Transit also has other service. And we have paratransit, and we have also an on-call ride service, and then additionally can provide vouchers that can even be used for, Uber, Lyft, that sort of thing. So as a Marin Transit board member, I'm aware of those programs, and I am very comfortable that there will be public transit available for these residents. So that transportation front can be addressed. All right, so now we have some hands up. So Jason, if you want to maybe let folks in and give folks a heads up, if they're getting lined up, that'd be great.
Yes, so we currently have 7 hands raised. Our first speaker is Linda, followed by Sybil.
Okay.
So Linda, please go ahead, unmute.
It's actually Linda Bissell, but that's okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
Okay. Well, my husband and I live literally 2 doors down from this project in a condominium that we've owned for many, many years. We are seniors, well above senior age, and we are really concerned that everything has been concerned about, relating to the students, all the children. There's not been one mention of seniors. South Eliseo has many seniors in this area, and it's very serious because the seniors are not capable of really defending themselves. People like to walk the bike paths, go to Bon Air. There's a lot of senior, not just kids, not just bicycles. So, I would really like that to be addressed at some time, because it's not. And already people are saying, I'm not going to walk by there anymore. I'm not doing that path anymore. So, it's like, what are we to think? Which has been a concern of mine the whole time, is never been addressed. I've been to many meetings, written letters, no comment, not a one comment on the senior issue. It's just really amazing to me. So, that, and also we're 2 doors down. So what happens when we hear noise, when we hear gunshots, when we hear, see drug abuse? So seniors are living here being vulnerable. The pathways, the yards are open. So you can walk from one to the other, up and down. There's no fences or gates. Our cars are all in carports. We are not in a garage. So that's another issue. So I'd like to know how these significant issues are going to be addressed, as opposed to just the school issue, which I also agree with. Mm-hmm. So there's no problem there. But I'd like this broadened up here.
Yeah.
Because, people are really concerned. They're talking about selling. We are owners, and, right on the waterfront. Now that took a lot of money. So people are living here basically free of charge.
Okay, Linda, thank you.
Okay, you got the drift. Okay.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I really appreciate the question. And yeah, we focused a lot on school community tonight, but it is really general. So I think maybe Chris or someone from ECS can talk a little bit about sort of your experience and management with your clients, and then maybe Dan Souter can speak to more that sort of larger community presence, which is for everybody.
I just have one more comment, if I can say. Also, the staffing issue. I was a social worker and a psychologist for many years, and I have seen what happens in the SROs in the city where I worked for many years. So there is not proper and available staffing for one person overnight for 43 people.
All right.
So, that needs to be looked at.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Linda.
So yes, thank you, Linda. We have a healthy aging department. So we're committed to our aging population, both within our programs and within the community. So I'm really glad that you spoke up as a voice that needs to be heard. We do want to take this into account. Some of the questions that you have, I'll let Dan Sowers take the lead on things like your cars and carports. I hear your concern that it won't be safe, but there is no reason for our residents to be on your property in any situation. So we know that, you know that, and law enforcement knows that, and we can all come to agreement that there needs to be a response if that is what's happening, or if you find that that's happening. Also, our most recent building that we opened, we had it's actually two buildings on the same property. One was for seniors and one was for single adults. And 60% of the single adults that moved into the single adult building were seniors. So we have a building for seniors and we have a building with 60% seniors. I think what you'll find, given the aging of the homeless population, is that you're going to have a number of seniors that become your neighbors as well, that are residents of this property. And we invite you to come over and see the property when we have an open house, to meet us. When there are things that concern you, I would invite you to come over and talk to the staff. This neighborhood is not the Tenderloin. This neighborhood is not south of Market. This won't be an SRO. I can guarantee you that. This has too much support, and it has too much visibility and county support and neighborhood support. So please come and get to know us so we can work with you on your concerns. Thanks.
Dan, you want to add anything?
Yeah, thanks, Supervisor. Yeah, absolutely. As the supervisor said, our commitment to safety, as Mike mentioned before, is across the board. We're here dedicated to the county of Marin, its residents, its visitors. So we'll be out there, we'll be vigilant. There's a lot of things in place already. We work really close with each other, like Mike mentioned. So you all being some of the citizens of the neighborhood, we encourage you to get involved, call things in right away. I can't speak for Chief Norton, but he's made a dedication to respond as needed. So really encourage that. And we'll be meeting quarterly, as Mike said as well. So these are the kind of things we're going to want to hear. If somebody was in somebody's driveway and things like that, that's what we want to hear and talk about. So, but yeah, we're excited and ready to be supportive and help however we can on the county side.
Thanks, Dan. And then I think I would add that, Linda, it's my intention actually to convene sort of actually do an invitation to more immediate neighbors prior to the project opening, to meet ECS staff, to be able to get more information and have a direct dialogue, see the housing, see what the project and facility looks like. So you'll have a different picture and frankly have an opportunity to meet with the staff that will be there. There is going to be, as Chris mentioned, that community safety ambassador who's going to be outside, frankly, right there sort of monitoring the sidewalk. So there is going to be a presence, but I think it will really help for you and your neighbors to have a chance to actually in person sit down and meet the ECS staff and start to get a feel for the place and that phone number to call if you have concerns. But we will schedule that meeting for probably in August when we can actually have a chance to get in the building and see it. So that I think will be a really good thing. And also do that with our business neighbors as well. All right, Jason, next person, please.
So our next speaker is Sybil, and then after that will be Janine. Sybil, please unmute.
You go. All right. As a close senior and very pragmatic neighbor, welcome. What I want to know is, do you have any donation facility for us to give things to, like their kitchen goods and furniture and things like that?
Right, great question. Is that Chris? Who would take that? Some opportunities for community engagement and help and support going forward.
Yeah, Christy alluded to or talked about this in her introduction earlier in this meeting. We are convening a community subcommittee of the Community Advisory Committee to work with us on exactly that: donations, events, and volunteer opportunities. So we welcome you to come and work with us as soon as we get that going. It should be within the next few weeks. And thank you for the welcome. I appreciate that.
And Sybil, if you could actually email my office with your contact info so we can reach out directly to you, but we'll also make a more general invite for folks who'd like to get involved. All right, next speaker, please.
Okay, the next speaker is Janine, and after that will be Annie. So Janine, please unmute.
Hello, Dr. Rice and team. Thank you for your presentation. I just want to give a little background that I moved here 2.5 years ago from San Francisco with my 2 small children to move to a safe place. I was tired of them picking up needles and the homeless situation there. I know it's obviously larger than just San Francisco. I can see the new facility from my house. And my first question for you is, Supervisor Rice, has to do with the inopportune of removing the crossing guard from South Eliseo and Bon Air, which, as we've talked about, another pair of eyes. Assuming that things are going to progress well, there will not be after the 90 days or after that, there won't be as much police involvement. So I just don't understand why you would take somebody that's a very important resource, but not an expensive resource for budget reasons away from our community, especially at this time.
Do you have another question too? And I will definitely
yes.
answer the crossing guard question.
So my other question has to do with the fact of what happened. I think a lot of the concern too are the guests. So it's not easy to get around Marin, really, if you don't have a car. That's the reality. So guests will probably be abundant, perhaps staying. I'm not really, sure. But how are you going to monitor that? And what if they're pitching tents, start to pitch tents in the community, which obviously is very what a lot of homeless people, unfortunately, are having to do. So how is the community going to monitor that?
All right, great. Okay, so Janine, I'm going to answer the crossing guard question, and then I'll hand over to ECS and or the county to answer your second question. So the crossing guard, it wasn't the county that took that crossing guard off the list. It was through the Transportation Authority of Marin, which manages that whole program. And at our meeting at which we were making the decisions about crossing guards, which is based on a criteria around traffic safety and facilities in terms of transportation facilities at different intersections, numbers of kids crossing, traffic volumes, et cetera. That site did fall off and or it may have been actually on because of all that construction activity that happened in the last year or two. So, but there is a process for a site being reassessed, and all it takes is the Public Works Director, in this case, it would be of Larkspur, to ask TAM, the Transportation Authority of Marin, to take another look at that intersection. And we have requested that Larkspur do that. We're also doing it for the Laurel Grove and Sir Francis Drake intersection. So I don't have unilateral authority over that crossing guard site, but we are going through a process to see if we can get one put in place if it's needed. And part of that is also assessing how many kids are actually using that crossing, which has been improved. So totally hear you. Love our crossing guards, and they do in all circumstances, they provide another set of eyes and ears on a street during, when kids are walking to and from school. So I hear you not wanting to see that crossing guard go there, and no one's liking losing crossing guards, but we'll see what we can do about getting one reinstated there. But it's not a unilateral decision on my part. So Chris or staff, yeah, Gary, you want to go ahead and answer the next question around guests?
Sure, I can start, and ECS, please feel free to jump in as well. So thank you, for expressing your concerns. I really hear the safety question, in your concern. One of my team is actually reminding me right now that a number of crossing guards in Marin are actually formerly homeless individuals. The Downtown Streets program, which is one of our partners, has an employment program and has worked successfully with a number of individuals. So glad you're seeing that, crossing guard role as important in the community. Those types of positions do help to support employment sometimes for some of our clients. I think as we think about the clients who are going to be moving into the facility, I would ask us all just to think about, 78%, of individuals who are homeless in Marin had a Marin address before they became homeless. So these are our brothers and sisters, our parents, our children, our neighbors, and a facility like this, a permanent housing opportunity like this, is essential in helping folks reconnect back, with that Marin address. So homeless individuals by and far in our community are our neighbors. They were our neighbors when they were housed. They are our neighbors when they're unhoused. And we're glad to be able to welcome them back, into housing, into a community that they have deep connections and relationships in, and roots connected to. So I think our clients want to see the same level of success of these types of facilities as you all do. They want to feel safe and secure. These are individuals who've been homeless for more than a year and who have some type of disability. Over 40% of clients that we house are seniors as well. So this is a population that very much mirrors, I think, what exists in our neighborhoods. And finally, I'll just say, the county has supported the operation of a number of these types of both interim and permanent facilities. We have not seen the types of criminal activity or attraction of additional, homeless individuals, people camping, in the area, or things like that. And we'll continue to work with communities to make sure that that continues to be a success. And me and my team, have been working with all of our housing developers in Marin to look at guest policies, and what's reasonable for, guests can often be very supportive to clients as they're retaining housing. These are often family members or others that are reconnecting or finally happy to see folks in a stable situation. But in all the facilities, there are always limitations on the number of guests, the time of day, whether they can be overnight or not. And our housing developers and operators keep a very close eye on that. So I'll just turn it over to ECS if they want to add anything to that.
Sorry, I was trying to find the right buttons. I don't think so. Thank you, Gary. That was inclusive. We are still working out the exact guest policy with our county partners. And we want to be in line with our other housing developers in Marin County, and not just sort of run in and impose our San Francisco model. So we've taken time on this guest policy, and we continue to work with other housing providers and with Gary directly on sort of the potential for a county-wide policy, so that we can come as close to fairness as we can across different programs. So I'm sorry, I don't have an exact answer for you, but we're working on it, and I'll get there quickly.
Yeah, and this was a topic of great discussion at the CAG, and it is one of those items that we're expecting ECS and county staff to sort of report back on. And I think that they heard input from CAG members on this, and it is important to have a policy that makes sense not and is fair across the board, and takes into account also potentially the phasing in a newer residents is, maybe has a different circumstance in terms of, or different parameters around visitors than something that's been in place for years. But we will be getting that information back out to the community once those policies are established, and also communicating with the CAG. Next speaker, please.
Our next speaker is Annie, and after that will be Carol. Annie, please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for the information you guys have provided thus far. I am a resident of Kentfield and a mom of 2 young kids that are in the KSD. I would have assumed, I know that we've been talking about this guest policy. I would have hoped that you guys weren't going to really coming down to like the 11th hour with this information. I just think that it's hard for us within our community as we kind of address the safety concerns, not really understanding. I mean, you guys talk about staffing these facilities, and if they're at one point, I remember seeing a slide somewhere, hearing something that the policy was like 2 guests were allowed, but there was no cap on how many nights any guests could be there. So technically tripling the resident population at the facility, which could be over 130 people. So I think my concerns lie around, it's already a big facility for the size of our community, given the fact that this is going to be like a change. We don't have 50 homeless people that are, obviously they're going to be housed now, so they'll be residents of our community, but it's going to be a change. So if you triple that, I'm just, at the last minute before the facility opens, even if it is staged, I'm wondering if ECS is going to not listen to the community and potentially adjust the staffing requirements depending on what they come up with the guest policy, and if there's going to be input by the community, because so far it's just kind of been a closed door that's going to be announced when it's announced. So that's one concern I have. And then listening to Sheriff Michael talk, I was appreciative to kind of hear the current sheriff's support for our community and what we have now. It sounds like the only net new support we're going to be getting is 90 days of kind of neighborhood patrolling. If after that 90 days, that more patrolling is necessary, has the county put any money aside within the budget to allow for additional community support surrounding this facility to keep the community, the seniors, the kids, the pathways, everything in our currently safe community the way that it is?
Okay, great, Annie. I think we got those questions. So Chris, if you want to fill in on the guest policy, and you referenced the San Francisco policy, which is mandated in San Francisco, and that you'd probably be making adjustments, but you can flesh that out. And then if Michael, if Deputy Thompson could speak to the law enforcement question.
Yeah. So what we currently have, Annie, there's 10 overnights a month per person. So it's not unlimited. It's not doubling the population. And it is only 1 person overnight, not multiples, unless there is something that, like what Gary described, that would be an exception. If people's family or if their kids were visiting, we might make an exception for your kids to stay for overnight if there's two of them. When people come in, let's see, visiting hours are 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. So folks can be in during the day. They need to be out in the evening. Everyone that comes in is required to have an ID. So we know who's in the building. We know when they came in. We know when they left. It's a very controlled situation within the building. The guest, the resident is required to stay with their guest the whole time. We don't let any guests in that appear to be intoxicated. So although a resident may, so I won't go into that, but we don't allow guests that are intoxicated. These are the elements of the current discussion. Anything that changes on what I just described would be a tightening, not a loosening. So I think the fear is that we haven't communicated anything, or the question is that we haven't communicated anything. This is what I can communicate. This is what we do currently. And we've brought that to the county and to the other housing providers. There are some folks that operate much more limited in their guest policy. And that's what I meant by we want to make sure we're working for the community and for our residents. And we're engaging in this policy discussion with the county to make sure that we're all doing the best thing for the folks that we're serving and for the neighborhoods that we're in. Yeah, I think that's.
Thanks, Chris. Dan, or Mike Thompson, or Deputy Thompson, sorry.
That's okay. Great question. And no, the sheriff has not, as of right now, made any plans to request money from the county to hire more deputies. If the call volume from this facility does, increase. But with that being said, the way the sheriff deploys deputies in the county, depending on the time of day, we have anywhere between 8 and 12 or 13 deputies kind of stationed around the county, and they move around based on calls. And so if we did happen to see an increase in calls in the Kentfield area because of the facility, we wouldn't need to hire more deputies. We could move deputies around with our current deployment strategy and certainly meet that need. So that's, it would not be a big deal for us to rearrange our deployment strategy to do that and to address it. And just again, the 3-month thing, it's not a hard, cutoff time. It was simply a reassessment time. And of course, if we do see an increase in calls, it's just going to continue, because we want to be where the calls are. And so if the calls are in Kentfield or Greenbrae or some other unincorporated part of that area, then that's where we're going to put the deputies. As you can imagine, Marin is a hard place to recruit and retain law enforcement. And so the sheriff does have to kind of juggle staffing needs since, every neighborhood wants more deputies, right? And we have less deputies doing more work than we ever have. And so it's a constant kind of juggling act, but I don't see any issues with redeploying deputies to meet those needs should they arise. So.
Yeah, and I think I'd add, Annie, that when let's see, Chief Norton has participated in our CAG from CMSA, and he did say that they really didn't see an increase in calls from the Casa Buena home key, but basically they operate the same way as the sheriff, and they move their folks around as needed. But this is part of that that 3-month sort of assessment. And frankly, I know we'll hear from Larkspur if indeed 1251 South Eliseo is generating a lot of calls, and they'll be asking us to do something to address that. But I'm anticipating and hoping that there will be no need. But I have confidence in both the sheriff and CMSA being able to adjust, especially in these early days as things go, just as they would if we saw an uptick in crime, bike thefts or whatever in, some other part of Greenbrae or Kentfield. All right, next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Carol, and after that is Alan. Carol, please unmute.
Yes, hello. I have lived in this area for a very long time in Kentfield. My sister lives about a half a block down the street on South Eliseo. We're both seniors. We both use the buildings, the offices that are legal and medical offices next door to this building. I have so many concerns. They all concern safety. So I'm going to try to prioritize so that I don't just ramble. One concern that's never been addressed is there's supposed to be one person coming around the building at night, but there are medical offices right next door, literally next door, that are basically a trove of medical records, usually with one person, often a young woman in front. What would protect that person? Nothing, absolutely nothing. All of our medical records are usually unlocked, available because there has been no problem. If somebody goes to the hospital, which is right around the corner, what about the people going in and out of the hospital at all hours of the night? There are no security guards there. There is a senior center right across the street for people recovering from hospitalizations. They are concerned. There's absolutely no protection for them. I have to say that anybody who's read the newspaper in the last 2 or 3 years has noticed a very huge different uptick in different kinds of community concerns around crime. Guns, fentanyl. What happens if these residents use fentanyl? It's basically legal if someone gets it legally. What happens if someone ODs? Who's responsible? Who can be sued? Who is the responsible party? Is Marin County responsible? And I'm just going to go on with another question. I have lived in this area for a long time. I also am a psychotherapist. I'm a marriage family therapist. And as part of my internship, I worked in Los Angeles in 1994, 92 to 94 at a residential community center for seriously mentally ill people. There were 100 people with schizophrenia, as it's called now. And we ran a completely safe, productive center where people not only lived, they thrived. And
Carol?
the reason, sorry?
Carol, there's quite a few more
A lot of
people.
people.
Yeah, there's
I
one
just
more.
want to say,
No, but we hear you, definitely.
well, one reason why they thrived is the food was served there. I don't understand why CVS or CPS or
ECS.
whatever can't, with all the money they're getting, can't provide food for these residents. It's a community
Carol,
way that they can
Carol,
interact.
Carol, I'm just gonna interrupt because I want.
That's fine.
Yeah, and I want to allow other folks to ask their questions. And I think just maybe quickly, Chris, you could speak to the food part and or the safety concerns. But I do also, Carol, you know, the folks who are being selected for this housing are folks who have the capacity to, you know, be independent, and they're being matched up in a situation where they're getting support services, but also that they'll have the support to be able to also, you know, move on in their lives and if, you know, potentially pick up some work or, you know, do whatever. A lot of them are going to be seniors, but they're being matched with this site because it's a good fit for them. In terms of the supports that are offered, but also the independence and that they can handle that independence. But there is definitely the ability to do food on site, and I think some communal meals as well. Chris, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, as far as the food, we need to help people with their individual food insecurities. It wasn't part of the program design as we developed this with the county. So, you know, 3 meals a day is not part of anyone's normal rental housing. And that's what this is. It's rental housing with additional support services. And the part of the support services will be helping people ensure that people have what they need to not be hungry.
Yeah.
To eat.
Yeah.
I'd like to add also, though, we run a senior center in San Francisco that's in the first floor of a supportive housing building, and they're seniors from around the community. They're not residents in the building. They come in from everywhere, essentially, in the neighborhood, and we've never had a problem. So the idea that just because people are formerly homeless is going to be an issue for seniors. The folks that we're serving may be aging themselves. All of them will also have disabilities as a criteria of their chronic homelessness. So they will probably be using the medical services as much as much more than disrupting them themselves. So thanks.
And if I, Supervisor, if I could just add in one brief thing, because I'm hearing, really the concerns about, a lot of concerns about what happens if, in certain situations, whether it's the guest policy and there's too many people in the building, or there's problems, or some of this. And I just want to say, from our county oversight perspective, again, our investment is in the success of this program. This is not a residential treatment facility. This is not a shelter. Like, this is an apartment building in the community, and folks who are matched, to this building are matched for their ability to be successful in a setting like this. So for folks who have those higher needs or situations, would never be matched, with a facility like this. But when it comes to, if it came to our attention at the county that too many guests were in the building, that it wasn't able to be managed by ECS, like, we would ask for immediate changes in the guest policy. We would be keeping an eye on that and overseeing it. As the county, that's our job, to keep an eye on how the facility is operating. Is it a success for the people who are living there? Is it a success for the community overall? So I just want to add that layer.
Yeah, thank you. All right, next speakers, please.
Okay, next speaker is Alan, and after that is Drew. Alan, please unmute. Alan, if you can please unmute.
There we go, unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, as my wife and I, we both have a quick question. The one question is, I'm wondering where these people are coming from, and it was brought up that 70% of the population would be coming from Marin.
Mm-hmm.
The question I have is, how do you know that? Have you already got your tenant mix all together, figured out? Has everybody signed up already? Or are you just importing people from other places?
Okay, we can get that question answered. What's the second question?
And the second question, Elizabeth?
Well, I'm very impressed with the project, and I keep reading that if you want to help a homeless person, the first thing is you provide a home so they have stability, and then they can go out and work and start improving their lives. And I've heard a lot about partnerships that you're all in, and that's great. That's the way to get things done, partner up.
Mm-hmm.
What about the residents? Are they feeling some sort of partnership responsibility to this new home that they've been given?
That's a great question. Great questions. Okay, so if Gary or Chris could speak to how do we know the residents that are coming through coordinated entry that are actually being assigned to, that will be matched up with this housing, and then the second question.
Great. So we definitely do not have to look outside of the county or bring people in to be able to fill housing like this. And how we know, we have a deep relationship through multiple providers in Marin, often spanning multiple years with our clients. We know who they are. We know what their experiences are. We know where they came from. And we know what is needed to be able to match them with success. So this is a very well educated and connected group of folks, dealing with oftentimes multi-year, histories with these clients who have deep insight into exactly, what clients are ready for and capable of. And again, just as a reminder, because I know it passed quickly in the presentation, we're starting the process now between the county, ECS, and our homeless service providers to begin matching which folks who are kind of on our waiting list for housing in Marin through what we call coordinated entry. So that process is beginning now, and will go over the next couple of months.
And Alan, just to add on, so through coordinated entry, and it involves basically anybody that's on our coordinated entry list has been interviewed, and I mean we have a lot of information on them, and that's how they end up getting placed on a list and their vulnerability assessed. And over the last 5 or actually maybe 6 years now, we've housed over 650 people in Marin County, and the majority of them, over 70%, were homeless, became homeless in Marin County, and have been homeless for more than a year. And those folks who have been housed, those over 650 individuals, a lot of them are in most of them are in scattered site housing, but have some case management. attached, and they are across the county in cities and in smaller communities. And then we do have, of course, some residential programs, Homeward Bound, Jonathan's Place, Casa Buena, and this. So as Gary said, these folks aren't just plucked off the street. They are well known, and they go through a process of interviewing, and then we match them to the housing. And then to your wife's question around partnering, and I think it was speaking to what's the responsibility of these residents in terms of being a good partner to the community. That's how I interpreted your question, and that's achieved, I think. Chris, if you could speak to the lease and sort of, the resident requirements, as it were.
The partnership, is. I was thinking about the question differently, so I'm a little.
Well, maybe
Sorry.
I'm wrong, but if you could, I mean, yes,
It's fine. There is a lease. Folks are responsible for the behavior. Law enforcement is responsible when they're not on the property, sometimes when they are on the property. So it's the normal social norms. What I heard in the question was, how are we bringing the partnerships to the residents? And that's a lot about building all of these partnerships that we're building now are the people that will be serving our residents in the future. Medical providers, behavioral health providers, the food system, all of these questions are partnerships that we're developing so that our residents can integrate into the community. And our community subcommittee of the CAG will be a part of that in bringing volunteers and bringing donations to the program. So there's a responsibility for the individual when they're out in the environment, and there's a responsibility for the community to welcome these new neighbors, and we will help you do that if you choose to. So thanks.
Thank you. All right, next speakers. We're getting close to time, but we can go a little bit over.
Okay, so the next speaker is Drew, and after that is Lori. Drew, please unmute.
Good evening. This question is for Supervisor Rice and potentially the local law officials on the call, but it's my understanding after speaking with the local law enforcement that the Casa Buena Home Key project, which is in Cormadera and has 18 units, has Barbier Security Group on site from 4 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. daily. A, could you confirm this information? And if B, if it is true, why is this not the model that you guys are going to move forward with right away in Larkspur, since there's going to be 42 residents at this location?
Okay, Gary, I'm going to give that to you. I don't know the answer to that.
Sure. Yes, there is some security at La Casa Buena. One of the primary reason for that is the level of staffing there is nowhere near what it is here at 1251 South Eliseo. Their staffing model is different there, given the number of units, and given that those units, exit to the parking lot and street, and just the different configuration there.
So, and I think, so what you're saying, Gary, the Casa Buena, I don't know that they have overnight staff, but also their doors open out straight to the street. The 1251 South Eliseo actually has a one-way front door entrance and exit, and it's locked at night, I believe. It's a little bit different situation. And if I misspoke, Chris, you can correct me. But I think also, just to Drew, if there's issues spilling out in the community that are causing if there's security issues, that's the kind of thing where the county is going to come to ECS and say, hey, you need to fix this. You shouldn't need to have, frankly, the security if it's being run properly. So that would be something we would be trying to keep our finger on the pulse of and address and hold everyone accountable. Okay, next speaker, please. And it's 8 o'clock now, and we'll go till 8:15, but that's it. I'd love to close at 8:10 and then sign off.
Okay, the next speaker is Lori, and after that is David. Lori, please unmute.
Hi there. My questions are, can you please go over the sobriety expectations Will drugs and alcohol be allowed in this facility for either residents or guests? How about weapons? Is there a zero strike policy? And will the community be made aware of any convicted felons, those with proven criminal history residing here? And then quickly after those questions, is there somewhere that we can read through the performance goals of this facility?
All right. Gary or Chris? I'm thinking the first part is Chris. You guys take it.
Yeah, I could just briefly say in terms of the performance goals, so the draft, work plan and budget that was created last May is a document that you can reference, but we will very shortly, have an updated version of that before the board at the end of June, and that you can see everything, all the performance goals listed in there.
The question, Lori, drugs and alcohol, it goes very deep. So I'll start with weapons. No weapons. Weapons aren't allowed. Drugs and alcohol, illegal activity isn't allowed, right? So when it comes to illegal drugs, legal drugs and alcohol are allowed. If it becomes a problem, that becomes obvious. If it becomes a problem in people's behavior, then we address that, both starting with the behavior itself and then moving through the lease violation process. And people do get evicted for behavior when it's required. So alcohol and drugs, if someone can use and maintain their composure, just like someone on the street who may have been drinking and was walking home, that's fine. If somebody is out of control, that's not fine, and we reach in and address that. I'm not sure how better to answer that for you, because it really comes to individual behavior, and every situation is different, but we don't ignore it. And if someone has a problem, we help them find solutions to the problem, like treatment, like other paths, including behavioral health services. So that's.
And then the convicted felon question.
I don't have an answer, because that comes. I don't know the answer to that one, Gary. It comes to
Oh, that's their coordinated answer.
Yeah, so I would say, we are not, you can't share the back, the information, the medical, the legal, criminal, history or background of anyone, under fair housing laws, with, outside of their direct treatment and community providers, the same way that, people's medical, legal, or criminal behavior, in the neighborhood in general wouldn't be shared, with the residents. So these are all, protected things, and, lease situations here are very similar to, any of your leases, that you might have in apartment buildings, behavior that, does not disrupt the public, the community, fellow residents, that can be managed, where folks can be engaged and supported to make changes. We're always looking for those opportunities, but things that violate, severe violations of leases, attempting to sell or distribute drugs, violence, weapons of any kind, this wouldn't be tolerated, at this, in this living situation, just like it wouldn't be tolerated in any other limited situations. And Section 8 does have some basic restrictions of who can get a voucher, based on certain types of criminal activity as well. So, we will be in alignment with, and complying with all of those regulations and expectations.
Next speaker is Jason, please.
Next speaker is David, and after that is Diana. David, please unmute.
Hi, just a quick follow-up to that last comment. I appreciate the clarification of the language on the guest policy, and I appreciated some of what we heard on the illegal drug use policy. If you are in line with Section 8, you'll know that illegal drug activity is one of the main causes that Section 8 vouchers are canceled in California. So if that continues, that'll, I think, be a strengthening of the opportunity. I didn't hear a clear answer on the zero strike question from the last. So if there's more color on that, that would be great. And then finally, will there be an opportunity for public review and comment of the draft agreement with enough time to properly review it before it's presented to the supervisors? Thank you.
The zero strike.
Zero strike, sure.
Yeah, and then we'll go to Gary.
Yep. Zero strike, in most cases, no, it is lease violations, which is a warning process. And to evict somebody, we have to go through the courts. We can't throw them out. This isn't a program. This is housing, and they have a lease. So we have to evict people through the courts. That being said, if there is something that endangers the community, if someone is a pyromaniac, they're setting fires, in that kind of very visceral, very real way, endangering the lives of their neighbors, we are able to move swiftly, and we don't have to go through a multiple lease violation situation. We can move straight to the courts, but we just still have to go through the courts.
Thank you. Gary?
In terms of review of the work plan and budget and contract, I would say that, that there are elements of that have been an ongoing discussion, through the community advisory group, everything from, the guest policy to some of the outcome metrics and measurements, to, the staffing levels, et cetera. So there's already been some significant input into that. And again, as this is posted, through the board process, there's always the opportunity for public comment there as well.
And I can make sure that when that staff report, we can push that out. And so it may, maybe the Wednesday or the Thursday before the Tuesday meeting, but it would at least be that far ahead. That's when things are publicly posted. All right, let's see. We've got 3 more. Let's do them quickly. So we've got Diana, Haley, and Dr. Jeff.
Diana, please unmute.
Hi, so I have a few questions, but really quickly, as we know, this area does not have a current homeless issue. And I really want to know who is responsible when something does happen because of this. And it might not happen at 1251 South Eliseo. It could happen at Creekside. It could happen at Bon Air. There's a bunch of places that it could potentially happen, but essentially this would be the root of it. And I just want to know who is going to go on record to say that they are responsible when a problem arises.
Diana, I think it probably depends on the problem, but these are individuals just like folks out, anybody who lives in the community, and ultimately the individual who does something, commits a crime or what have you, is responsible. But I think that the goal of the program is, and the staffing that's there, and frankly, the folks who become residents of 1251 South Eliseo are there because they want the housing, and they're choosing to live in this residence, and know that housing is at risk if they can't get along inside the facility and or outside in the community. And then, so who's next? Haley, and then Dr. Jeff?
Haley, please unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thank you for taking our questions tonight. I had a couple quick questions. You guys referenced a bunch to individuals or community members with leases, et cetera. This is to be considered like any lease holding member of our community. So I guess I'm a little unclear. Will these residents be paying rent, or is there any kind of employment or services, are they required to seek any kind of employment or services to retain that lease? Motivation, hopefully, to continue to stay in the program. And then I just wanted to ask about something I'd heard, and I've never seen this confirmed on any of the information actually on paper, but I did want to ask about the profile of the residents at the facility, and understanding that there is a subset of them, maybe a specific number, I'm not sure, that will fall into the category of severe addiction and mental health challenges based on the funding that was sought out to support this facility, and that there was an agreement to take on people that fell into that bucket. And so love to understand the connection between that bucket of people and requirement to seek any kind of services or employment to retain a lease.
Okay.
And then the last one is, I was at the last meeting that was held. I appreciate the additional detail provided today, but could you please provide for this community specifically what has changed between then and now based on community input?
All right, thank you. Gary or Chris, you want to speak to the rent and the Section 8 holding and et cetera?
Sure. There is a rent subsidy, but people will be expected to pay 30% of their income towards rent, whatever that income is. We've talked about this a few times. People coming in are not just experiencing homelessness, they also have long-term homelessness and other disabilities. Primarily, those will be physical disabilities, and that will stop most people from working. And it's often one of the causes of homelessness is people's disability leads them to not being able to work, so they can't pay rents, and they find themselves homeless. That happens a lot. For the serious mental illness, yes, there will be a significant portion with serious mental illness. That is the staffing pattern accounts for that. So we will be working with those people. We will also be working with our county partners. We do not ever think that we can do this alone. It takes medical providers. It takes other behavioral health providers. It takes all of the resources that can wrap around somebody. If somebody refuses services completely and their behavior is not appropriate, again, people don't get kicked out. They don't get evicted because they're drinking. They don't get evicted because they have a mental health issue. They can get evicted for their behavior. If the mental health issue leads to problem behavior, then we will take the necessary action and work with our county partners in determining what that is on a case-by-case basis. So there is a lot of compassion that goes into these decisions, but it also brings in accountability for safety often. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I just wanted to reaffirm, because I know we've talked about this before. So support that we've gotten through a funding stream called No Place Like Home has been helpful in putting aside 16 of the units for adults with a serious mental illness diagnosis. And, again, just as a reminder, folks that are matched and placed at 1251 South Eliseo, even in those units, are going to be individuals who are ready for that type of setting. So this does not mean that individuals who are having struggles, with maintaining, a connection and support around their mental health, who are, completely refusing to address anything around their mental health, this is unlikely to be the situation. These have to be folks who are in a place where they're ready to live in this type of setting. And that's why through our Mental Health Services Act funding, we've provided funding support for the on-site behavioral health clinician and other supports at the facility to ensure that those 16 residents get exactly what they need and that connection to their essential supports and services are maintained. And although a person does have the right to refuse to engage in treatment or services, we and our partners are relentless, especially in a building where folks are living, in engaging to assure folks get connected to what they need.
And then I think just real quickly in terms of what's changed over the last year or so with regards to any of the programming or staffing, or, I think it's primarily modifications, shifts versus huge add-ons or even maybe new positions. So, I can try to we can circle back with that and try to sort of quantify what's changed or increased over the last year. But in terms of the basic parameters of the program, it is what it is. And then through the CAG's work, I think that, you've heard sort of more of the attention and understanding what law enforcement can do and how they can be responsive. Staffing levels that are under contract through the county, those have been those have been, I think, tweaked over time. And then we've talked a little bit about the, whoops, I'm losing my train of thought. I will think of it again. But anyway, there has been changes. It makes a difference. Oh, the visitors policy. That's a big one. That's something that shifted going into this. The visitors policy was going to be in alignment with what ECS is required to do in the city. The city has requirements, and it's a fairly liberal visitors policy. And as you heard Chris and Gary speak, we're actually looking at what's happening here in the county, and probably we'll be bringing whatever the ECS visitor policy more in line with what the norm is here in Marin County, and potentially even account for a phasing in as the facility is populated up. Okay, sorry for speaking so long. Okay, two more, Dr. Jeff and Carol, and that's it. Jason, no more hands up after that.
Okay, Dr. Jeff, please unmute.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So this is really directed for you, Katie. You sold this, and your website and the county and Beth Stokes even have this. You talked a lot about the community service safety team. And it was described as kind of the eyes and ears of the community, there to de-escalate things, to be a liaison in the community, and that has since changed. The website, the 1251 website reads now that the community service safety member will be essential in creating a safe and supportive community for the residents of 1251. And now there's an addition to that where you have, now there's a community ambassador whose primary role will be to be supportive and to intervene in an emergency so that the residents' environment is safe and secure. There's been a ton of concern with community safety, and the changes that you've made now are more of safety for the residents versus your community. How do you square that?
Well, the way I squared is it actually, I think that the community safety ambassador, that team, that was something that had been talked about, and that continues to exist, and is there through ECS. And I think what is different is understanding internally the staffing that's there, and then more specifically really understanding, and I think this was, a real aha moment for the CAG, is the safety aspects and of public safety that are in place external to outside of the facility, off the property, and how that works. And we had a lot of conversations with the various public safety agencies. The staffing levels, frankly, at 1251 are really sort of at the premium. This is a Cadillac of in terms of staffing, the client ratios, the on-site staff, the housing management. So I think we all got really a much clearer picture of what's in place, and then the county and its contract negotiations with ECS has fine-tuned all that. So no one's tried to be misleading or misrepresent, and I'm sorry if that's how this has come across. Tonight's presentation was to, share with the larger community the things that are in place, that have been put in place, that I think, I feel good about, that are there. And I also feel good about the ability for both the county to hold ECS accountable, and for the general community law enforcement and safety presence that exist to be able to flex and move and respond as should there be a need to. So I think that's all I can give you there, and I'm sure that's not satisfying, but I'll stand by the project. So Carol, you're our last questioner, and then While you're asking your question, Carol, maybe Jason, if you could put up the slide that has the email address that folks can use if they have follow-up questions or comments. And then Carol, it's all yours. But
Thank you very much for listening to my questions.
Oh, Carol, didn't you already speak?
I did. Can I
Okay.
just ask one more question?
You know
Very,
what?
very quick.
I'm gonna, Carol, I'm gonna actually say no, because it's 8:20 and I've held all these people up over for 20 minutes over 8. Really appreciate you being part of this, everyone that was here tonight. If you do have follow-up questions, please do email at the homekey@marincounty.org. And we will continue to stay in touch through the website and push out newsletters and those opportunities to come to an open house, and also keep folks up to date on the quarterly check-ins and any next steps of the CAG. And I want to thank Chris and Gary, Mike, and Dan for being here tonight and participating, and for Jason, you and your tech team to be there as well, and the participation of all the CAG members and the community at large. Have a good night, and please do circle back if you need more information or want to participate in programming going forward. So thank you and good night.